The invitation arrived in a cream envelope, sealed with wax the color of a summer sky, and it burned in Julian's hand like a lit fuse. It read, "Julian Carter, you are cordially invited to the wedding of Ethan Harper and Sophia Reyes, August 15th, 2025, Lake Tahoe, California." By the third read, Julian, 28, was pacing his Brooklyn apartment, heart hammering, because Ethan, the man who'd once whispered promises under a starlit Joshua Tree sky, had invited him, his ex, to his wedding. Julian wasn't alone, for others received the same invitation, each name a ghost from Ethan's past. Amara, 29, a fiery painter from Oakland; Theo, 30, a reserved architect from Chicago; Riley, 26, a non-binary musician from Portland; and Lena, 27, a nurse from Seattle. Ethan, now 32, had loved them all, each relationship a chapter he'd closed, or so they thought. The wedding was in 3 days, and none of them knew why they'd been summoned to witness Ethan pledge himself to someone new. But the pull of unfinished business, of questions never answered, drew them to Lake Tahoe like moths to a flame. Julian arrived first, checking into a rustic lakeside lodge under a sky bruised with dusk. The air smelled of pine and regret. He'd loved Ethan fiercely at 24, back when they'd spent nights mapping each other's souls in a cramped Venice Beach studio. Ethan had been a dreamer then, all wild ideas and soft touches. But he'd left without a word, leaving Julian to piece together his shattered heart. Now, standing by the lake, Julian clutched the invitation, wondering if this was Ethan's way of making amends or twisting the knife. Amara pulled up next, her red curls bouncing as she slung a duffel bag over her shoulder. She'd met Ethan at an art gallery in San Francisco, where he'd bought one of her paintings, a chaotic swirl of blues that matched his eyes. Their romance had been a wildfire, burning bright and fast until Ethan vanished, leaving her with a half-finished canvas and a broken heart. She spotted Julian by the lodge's porch, his dark hair catching the last light, and hesitated. "You got one too?" she asked, holding up her invitation. Julian nodded, and they shared a look, two strangers bound by the same wound. Theo arrived an hour later, his glasses fogging in the mountain air. He'd known Ethan in grad school, their love a quiet thing built on late-night sketches and shared silences. Ethan's departure had left Theo questioning every blueprint he'd drawn for his life. He greeted Julian and Amara with a curt nod, his architect's precision masking the chaos Ethan's invitation had stirred. Riley followed, their buzz cut sharp under a leather jacket, guitar case in hand. They'd fallen for Ethan during a summer tour, his charisma a melody they couldn't resist. When Ethan ghosted them, Riley wrote an album about it, but the pain lingered like an unresolved chord. Lena was the last, her nurse's scrubs swapped for a sweater that hugged her frame. She'd met Ethan during a volunteer stint in a rural clinic, his compassion for others mirroring her own. Their breakup had been gentle but no less devastating, a slow bleed that left her wary of love. As the five gathered in the lodge's common room, the air crackled with unspoken questions. Why were they here? What game was Ethan playing? The rehearsal dinner was the next night, held in a candlelit barn overlooking the lake. Sophia, Ethan's fiancée, was radiant, her smile warm but unknowing. She welcomed the Exes with grace, oblivious to the storm brewing in their hearts. Ethan, however, was nowhere to be seen. "He's finalizing some details," Sophia said, her voice light but her eyes searching. Julian's stomach twisted. Ethan's absence felt like a prelude to something bigger. As the night wore on, the Exes found themselves drawn together, sharing stories of Ethan's charm and his maddening tendency to disappear. Julian spoke of stargazing in the desert, Amara of painting through dawn, Theo of drafting dream houses, Riley of late-night jam sessions, and Lena of bandaging wounds side by side. Each story was a thread, weaving a tapestry of a man who loved deeply but never stayed. By midnight, Ethan still hadn't appeared. Sophia's smile faltered, and the exes exchanged glances. Something was wrong. Julian slipped outside, the others following, and found a note tucked under a rock by the lake. "Meet me at the old pier, midnight. E." The handwriting was unmistakably Ethan's, and it sent a jolt through Julian's chest. They went together, the five of them, their footsteps crunching on the gravel path. The pier was deserted, the lake a mirror reflecting their unease. Another note waited, pinned to a post. "I'm sorry. I can't do this. Find me where we first met." No signature, but they knew. Ethan had vanished, leaving Sophia at the altar and his exes with a puzzle. The group split up, each heading to the place where their story with Ethan began, determined to find him and answers. Julian flew to Los Angeles, landing in the heat of Venice Beach. The studio where he and Ethan had lived was gone, replaced by a trendy cafe, but the boardwalk hummed with memories. He wandered to the spot where they'd first kissed, under a mural of crashing waves. There, tucked into a crack in the wall, was another note. "I was never brave enough for you. Check the Joshua tree." Julian's heart clenched. Ethan had remembered their desert nights, but why this chase? Amara returned to San Francisco, to the gallery where Ethan had bought her painting. The space was under new management, but her artwork still hung on the wall, a relic of their love. A note was taped to the frame. "Your passion scared me. Look to the redwoods." Amara's hands shook as she read it. Ethan had always run from intensity, but this felt like a confession. Theo drove to Chicago, to the university library where he and Ethan had spent countless nights. The table where they'd carved their initials was still there, and beneath it, a note. "Your stability made me feel small. Find me in the skyline." Theo's jaw tightened. Ethan had always craved chaos, but this game was unraveling something deeper. Riley hitchhiked to Portland, to the dive bar where they'd first played for Ethan. The stage was empty, but a note was tucked into the mic stand. "Your music was too real. Check the coast." Riley's throat burned. Ethan had loved their songs but fled when they cut too close. Lena flew to Seattle, to the clinic where she and Ethan had worked. The exam room was unchanged, and a note was pinned to the bulletin board. "Your kindness deserved better. Look to the mountains." Lena wiped away a tear. Ethan's words were an apology, but they didn't erase the hurt. Each journey revealed a piece of Ethan's heart, his fears laid bare in scribbled notes. He'd loved them all but couldn't commit, not to them, not to Sophia. The exes, connected by their shared pain, began texting each other, piecing together the clues. The notes converged on one place, a remote cabin in the Sierra Nevada, where Ethan had spent his childhood summers. They arrived together, a reluctant team, and found the cabin empty but warm, as if Ethan had just left. A final note sat on the table. "I invited you here to face my failures. I'm not the man you loved. I'm trying to be better. Forgive me." Below it was a photo of Ethan, alone by the lake, his face etched with regret. The exes sat in silence, the weight of Ethan's words settling over them. Julian spoke first, his voice steady. "He's running again, but this time it's from himself." Amara nodded, her anger softening. "He wanted us to see him, really see him." Theo adjusted his glasses, thoughtful. "He's lost, but he's trying. Riley strummed a soft chord on their guitar. Maybe this was his way of letting us go. Lena clutched the photo, her eyes soft. And letting himself go, too. They didn't find Ethan that day or the next. The wedding was canceled. Sophia left to heal her own wounds. But the exes stayed in touch, their shared journey forging a bond stronger than their heartbreak. They'd come for closure and found something better, each other. Ethan's disappearance wasn't the end. It was the beginning of their own stories, written in courage and connection. In the end, they realized Ethan's greatest gift wasn't his love, but the way he'd brought them together, 5 strangers who'd learned to forgive, to heal, and to love again. Not because of him, but in spite of him.